Hey there, my name's Paul, and this is Out of Neutral, a weekly vlog where we look to the Bible to get in gear and follow Jesus into the life he came to make possible. Now, today I want to talk about why the New Testament doesn't talk more about tithing. As you read the Old Testament, it's clear that giving God tithes, or the first 10% of your income, is a big thing. It's modeled by people like Abraham and Jacob, even before the law was introduced. It's commanded in the Mosaic Law. And when people neglect tithing, God equates it with robbing him in the book of Malachi. In the New Testament, it doesn't seem to be mentioned as much. But understanding why helps us to see how God's vision for our finances has been transformed by Jesus. I want you to notice three things. First, when Jesus does mention tithing, he affirms it. In the Gospels, Jesus speaks of tithing 3 times. One instance occurs in a parable he taught in Luke 18 about a Pharisee who was outwardly conscientious in keeping the law, but also proud and self-righteous. In the story, the man's tithing is held up as an example of diligent obedience to God. In the other 2 instances, in Luke 11 and Luke 23, Jesus confronts the Pharisees who have painstakingly given a tenth of their spices to God while ignoring justice, mercy, and love. Jesus doesn't say, giving God a tenth of your spices is ridiculous. Just show mercy and justice instead. Instead, he says, these you ought to have done without neglecting the others. These examples show Jesus affirming tithing while confronting the hypocrisy of people who are only concerned with keeping God's rules, but ignoring God's heart. But secondly, Jesus' teaching on finances went deeper than a number. Even though Jesus mostly ministered among Jews who were fairly faithful in the practice of tithing, he warned that people could treat money as a god. In Matthew 6:21, he famously taught that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And he warned that you cannot serve both God and money. The idea seems to be that a person can give God the bare minimum, but still put their hope and trust in money for their satisfaction and security. Jesus never taught people to tithe, but frankly, it would have been a lot easier if he did. Instead, in Luke 12:33, he said, "Sell your possessions and give to the needy." And in Luke 14:33, "Any one of you who does not renounce all that he has cannot be my disciple." It's not that becoming a Christian requires a vow of perpetual poverty, but if we don't recognize God's authority over all of our possessions and express that in how we give and how we manage what we have, we probably haven't understood Jesus' call to discipleship. Finally, notice that the disciples' response to Jesus went beyond 10%. When you see how people responded to the gospel, it's not surprising that there aren't more reminders about tithing. When Jesus calls James and John to follow him, Mark records, immediately they left their nets and followed him. And while fishermen were working class, tax collectors were rich. When Matthew, a tax collector, heard Jesus' call, Luke writes, and he left everything behind and got up and began to follow him. Zacchaeus, who was also a tax collector, he promised to repay anyone 4 times what he cheated them. But he also announced, "Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor." Then in the early church, people sold their possessions. They sold them to give to those in need. They even sold land and houses to provide for those with less. It's not that they weren't familiar with the concept of tithing, but as they reckoned with how much Jesus had sacrificed for them and the spiritual riches that they enjoyed in the gospel, they wanted to give more. If we're to take Jesus' teaching seriously, we need to ask whether money has captured our hearts. We need to ask whether it's become a god to us, with promises of pleasure, satisfaction, and security. Do you see everything you have as a gift from God to be managed generously and sacrificially for his glory? Or do you give God a little to ease your conscience so you can spend the rest on yourself? We break money's hold on our lives when we take steps of faith in our giving to declare, money has no hold on me. Well, that's all for this time. If today's video has helped you get out of neutral, share it with your friends, and subscribe to join us on the journey.